Maybe this podcast is not going to be positive at all because it's one of those things that it's hard for me to do because I don't know which way to go with it.
I think theology's for the clergy. I just believe in Jesus.
Certain hermeneutics of eschatology demand an exegetical approach.
I think you shouldn't question what you were taught in church. Isn't that blasphemy or something?
Theology. Unplugged.
Hey friends, Michael Patton here for Theology Unplugged. I am here alone this time. I haven't been alone in a while because we've had a lot of special guests and I'm doing a lot of different podcasts. I'm doing the crypto theology podcast and still doing the podcast with Tad, Conversations with Tad. The problem with that has been Tad has been really, really sick. We're not sure what he has, but he has something possibly something to do with where he's living. Just pray for him. Pray that we get that straightened out because we are working. I talk to him every day, and he is pretty darn sick. So pray for him. Pray that it gets better, and we figure out exactly what it is and are able to correct that. Today, I'm going to be talking by myself about the issue of healing. Now, I know it says miracles, and miracles, healing is a type of miracles, so I put that in there as the title because it really can qualify for both. I want to talk specifically about healing because a lot of times I talk about prophecy, and you guys know how much I've talked about how much I would love to be charismatic. I mean, I'm rooting for Team Charismatic. They are my team. I just haven't been able to get on that team yet because I haven't been convinced that I should, or it's responsible for me to get on that team. Reason why I bring this up is because last night I watched this guy who was, he seemed pretty intellectually astute. Now, I don't want to put too much upon that because that's not the issue. I'm just saying he was well studied. He knew his stuff. And he loved to know his stuff. He dug deeper. At least that's what he said. But at the same time, he talks about how God has come into his life and suddenly caused him to be able to open his eyes to be able to see kind of the spiritual, not the spiritual world, the world of miracles and the spiritual world in a way, because it's very charismatic type stuff. Now, whenever you're talking about charismatic, let me define this real quick at the beginning. I know I talk about it a lot. Hear me out. You can talk about charismatic in two different ways. You can talk about charismatic in the sense of personality. And so somebody can have a very charismatic personality, a very outgoing personality, something that, attracts people. That's a charismatic personality. But when you're talking about in the theological world, it's really something else. And I mean, you take the one there, set that aside. Now you take what is charismatic in the theological world, and you can go two different directions with that, because you can say, first of all, charismatic means that you believe that God is working behind the scenes. You believe in spiritual things. You believe that there's lots going on that we do not see. That is a charismatic type of attitude. So you can have a charismatic attitude in the church. It can even be in the church where you raise your hands a lot and you're very expressive in your praise. That fills a big part of your life, the praise and worship. That is also kind of charismatic. And so the more you believe in these things, let's say somebody comes up and they are a exorcist. They are somebody who is in deliverance ministries and they deliver people from demons. We would define that as charismatic as well. However, technically speaking, it's not really charismatic just to believe in those things. You can believe in all the miracles in the world. You can believe in all the healings. You can believe in demons. You can, you can see demons every day. If you did, that would be terrible. But let's say you did. That doesn't necessarily make you really charismatic. Being truly charismatic has to do with three things. You believe that the supernatural sign gifts, I know I've said this before, just hear me out. The supernatural sign gifts, the so-called supernatural sign gifts, that are spoken of primarily in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the list of them with miracles and healings and prophecy and tongues and so forth. Those gifts have continued. People still get them today. In the body of Christ, people are gifted with a certain gift that they use in the body of Christ for the mutual encouragement of everybody else. Kind of like I try to do And I hope that I have with teaching. I think I do have the gift of teaching. I hope I do. Let's not find out, at the very end I didn't, but that's what I love to do. That's what I spend my time thinking about. And I hope I can contribute in a positive way to the church. Maybe this podcast is not going to be positive at all, because it's one of those things that it's hard for me to do because I don't know which way to go with it. But number one, you believe those gifts have continued to today. They're still being given. Number two, you believe that these gifts are supposed to be normative for the local church. And then number three, you are pursuing them. I know I say this all the time. These are the three things you have to have: continuationism, belief that they're continued, a belief that they are present in local churches. Normative is the best word I think it is for that, because the idea is it's supposed to be happening. It's God's will for the local church, every local church, to practice these gifts for the mutual encouragement. Why would why would God not give them? That's the idea. And then finally, you have to be pursuing them yourself. You have to go to one of these churches. You have to be looking for the encouragement that they give. You've got to be expressing your own gift. You can't be hiding out and be a charismatic. You're just not. You're a continuationist, but you're not a charismatic. So those things are what I'm talking about. You know me, I have been dealing with for 25 years the idea of being charismatic and how to be charismatic. I want to be charismatic. There's a lot of things I want to be that I think are functional, and then sometimes some things that I want to be that I think are better. They're more exciting. Whenever it comes to, let's say, being a Roman Catholic, I love the Roman Catholic Church. I do. I know a lot of you guys are going to hate me for saying that. I love their historic defense of the person and work of Christ, of the Trinity. I mean, I think that they have been a bulwark. Hopefully they continue to be a bulwark of strength when it comes to the primary doctrines about the person and work of Christ. Not a Catholic whenever it comes to the other things, especially whenever it comes to the Pope and the magisterial authority and all the councils and their authority over me. I do not believe that they, by virtue of belonging to an institution, have authority over me. However, and the reason why I say this is because I have no problem with that. I really don't. I mean, how much good would it do? I can make an argument another way, but listen, how much good would it do if you knew where to go every time and you knew that the Lord was speaking through someone whenever you had a doctrinal problem or you had something that you needed guidance on, and ultimately you could go to a bishop that has authority, and then ultimately you could go to council that has infallibility. So I would love that. I mean, we could go to those things and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing evil about the idea of a church that has a magisterial authority that holds the treasury deposit that God gave to us. Therefore, is the eyes and the ears and arms and just the way that God functions in the world. Nothing wrong with that. I love it. I mean, it's not like I'd say, hey, Val, you can't do that. Yes, you can. God can do that. God did it for so long in the Old Testament with the prophets, and then in the New Testament with the apostles. So I would love that. And here's the deal. I would also love it whenever it comes to the charismatic issue. I love it more, actually, because with the charismatic issue, whenever you're talking about, does God still do these things today? Again, there's just a presence there. Now, there was this guy last night that was talking about how much change he had. And let me tell you how I felt, okay? I'm just going to tell you how I felt, because this is very important for understanding why I'm talking about this today, at least. I felt very jealous, insecure. The idea is you think in your mind, what if I'm wrong about all this? What if this guy is right? What if he's right on and I'm supposed to be going and heading in that direction or already there? All of a sudden I feel this insufficiency and insecurity because it's such a big move I haven't made. It's like, you're a Christian and you haven't started going to church yet, or you're a Christian and you haven't started praying yet. It's kind of one of those things. You're just like, oh, wow, you're supposed to pray? I guess I better start doing. I'm missing out on something big if this guy is correct. Now, there's all kinds of things that are wonderful about it. Whenever you're talking about gifts, here's what I thought about, because he was going through talking about all the people he has healed. He gave testimony after testimony after testimony. It became very pedantic after a while because it was just, I don't know. I don't know how to handle that kind of stuff whenever it's just over and over again. But it was something that I started thinking about myself, and I was like, man, if this is true, my feet, which I can't feel my feet anymore, and I've had such pain in for so long, and caused me, I mean, all the way up to my knees almost. My legs are completely numb, not paralyzed, just numb. I can't feel them, and it causes quite a bit of problems, both pain and problems. I know it sounds weird, pain, but there is pain in the midst of the numbness. It's odd. People who have this type of neuropathy know what I'm talking about. I was just thinking, God, that's what I do, at least for myself, because that would take care of a big problem that is causing other problems. And so I did. I sat there and I said, Lord, come on. If this is true, if this guy, what he's saying is true, I ought to be able to pray to you. I know he does say it's your will. He does say that. He said it's the Lord's will. We don't know when it's going to happen. That's a common charismatic type thing, of course. God is sovereign over the gifts. He distributes them as he wills. But they are of the same Spirit, but he has given a manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. God is in control of these gifts. So I understand that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I can't get it to happen with my feet. I can't get it to happen with my mother, who lost most of her brain in 2006 and is still alive. And it's just it's a hard situation. I can't get it to happen in all the situations in my life, and I can't see it happen anywhere else. And I'm like, okay, if this guy's right, and God is, he wants to work so badly, because this is his whole spiel. God wants to work this way in your life. He wants you to get involved with this and see the greatness of everything that's going on, because we're missing out on so much. And I would agree 100%. I mean, it doesn't change my faith. It doesn't make me believe. Well, in a way, it would. Experientially, whenever you add experience to your faith, the rationality of your faith and the emotions of your faith and the history of your faith, whenever you add experience to that, it does contribute a significant subjective component that makes your faith stronger. And I think you need a three-dimensional faith. I think it should be rational and historical and emotional and everything else. Now, biblical, of course. And as you guys know, I don't think there's anything in the Bible that tells me that the charismatic gifts ceased. Doesn't really tell me that they've continued, although there's a couple of passages that kind of seem to point in that way. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 at the end seems to suggest that, and Acts chapter 2 seems to suggest that. But at the same time, it doesn't demand it, I don't think. I could be wrong. But here's the deal. Am I missing out? This guy's basically, his spill is, you are missing out. There is so much going on. And another thing he brings up is how we are in the West, how much the Western world does not engage. We're too rational. We kind of have a veil that is put up that other people do not have, that see and allow for spiritual things. Now, having said that, it's an odd thing to say that, because it's like most of the people I know, I mean, maybe we are rational, and we are too rational sometimes, but at the same time, rational enough to stop the gifts from happening. I mean, let's go to the time of Jesus. There's a bunch of passages. Let me see if I can bring these up. I was actually looking at this for something else earlier, but there's a bunch of passages in the Bible that are really interesting whenever it comes to what was the zeitgeist, the mood, the cultural, where was the culture at the time of Christ with regard to these things? What's going on in the background? The zeitgeist. That's what that means. Zeitgeist, the ghost of the times, I think, something like that. German word. But listen to this. And this is what I love, this passage. I really do, because I use it in other contexts. And this is what I was doing earlier. John 9:32. John 9:32. Write that down, because that's significant in what I'm talking about here. John 9:32, Jesus has just healed the man who was born without any ability to. He was born a invalid, born an invalid, and Jesus has just healed him. And the Pharisees are coming up to him, or the Jewish leadership's coming up to him, saying, "Hey, give an account of this. You just got healed by a evil dude. Jesus is bad." Same thing Pharisees were always doing. And I love the way this guy argues against them. They try to bring in his parents, and his parents are run off scared, basically. They are not going to defend him because they're scared of the Pharisees. This guy's not. He just got healed for the first time, and he doesn't care what they think. But he says this to them whenever they are criticizing Christ. He says, "Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a blind man." That's the key. Really? In your culture, in the time of Christ, in the first century, nobody has even heard of it? I mean, he doesn't say just nobody has opened the eyes of a blind man. Sorry, that he was blind. The invalid was chapter 9. Or chapter 5, excuse me. But you have nobody's even heard of it. That's the cultural mood that Jesus was in. And I thought, man, that's not that much different than today. I mean, I've heard of it, so I'm a little bit more attuned. I mean, we got access to more stuff. We got the internet. We got ways that we can reach across the world and get information. But at the same time, I can't believe in their day, nobody has even heard of it. And in their day, they were actually somewhat rational. I mean, especially when we have the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Sadducees were an entire sect that were in the Jewish leadership that did not believe in any of this stuff, didn't believe in any spiritual world going on the outside. So they were really very, very rational in that sense. They had a veil up. Also, you had the time of the Greeks that had influenced the entire world with Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and the rationality that came from them. So the whole world, the Jewish people, whenever they interpreted the Bible, it was a very rational thing for them too. I mean, there was a very deep, mysterious, miraculous kind of the way in which they interpreted that was supernatural, but at the same time, it's not as if they were expecting all of these things to happen, that Jesus came into a world where everybody was not surprised by miracles. Whenever Jesus came into the world and did his miracles, everybody was surprised. It was not a culture where you had this going on all the time. Listen to this. That was John 9:32. Let's see here. Let me go to... Oh, I missed it. Oh, well, no, I'm going to go. Give me a second here. This is Matthew. I think it's 9:32. Mine 9:33 because it's close. Matthew 9:33. Okay, listen to this. After the demon was cast out, the mute man the mute man spoke, and the crowds were amazed, saying, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." That's an exorcism. So, I mean, Jesus is coming into a time and doing his miracles. He's making a splash. The waters were settled. The waters were calm. It was not something that was already going on. It was not in the mind of the culture. It wasn't in the mind of the people. Let's see here. Let me give you one more. This is Mark. Like I said, I just found these this morning because I was searching on this particular topic for another reason. I was writing a blog on it. I've got like blogs going all the time that I never finish, but it's just always going on. Okay, this is another time whenever he heals a deaf person, and he gave them orders not to tell anyone. But the more he ordered them, the more they widely they continued to proclaim it. They were utterly astonished, saying, "He has done all things well. He makes even the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." Notice that. I mean, this is talking about people are out of their mind. They're crazy. This is why he had such a following. It was a big deal. It was different. He came into the world that I would argue from the zeitgeist was as rational as ours in many ways. They were not expecting this stuff. Okay, that it was something that bursted into their world and made a significant impact, whether you believed it or didn't believe it, or trusted in Christ or didn't trust in Christ. Like the Sanhedrin said, we cannot deny that a notable miracle has taken place. I mean, it's like nobody was denying it at that time because he made such a splash, but they wanted to. It was not a normal thing. Now, why do I say all that? I say all that because, listen to this. I found this too. It says, it is a worthy remark that from the foundation of the world, no person born blind had been restored to sight, even by surgical operation. Till about the year 1728, when the celebrated Dr. Cheselden, by couching the eyes of a young man of 14 years of age, restored them to perfect sight. This was the effect of a well-directed surgery that was performed by Christ was a whole miracle. This is what Christ did. He did a miracle, but we don't hear about these things. That is not something that you've never really been able to fake it much. Yeah, there's charlatans out there. Yes, there's magicians, real magicians. And yes, they attract some people. Very source. You've heard me talk about this over and over again, and I will keep on talking about it because it's so important to try to stay balanced. All I'm trying to do is to step into the world of experience and see the hand of God the way so many of us want to. There's not a person that I could talk to anybody who loves God, anybody who knows God, anybody. Golly, it doesn't even have to be somebody who loves God. I could get you, I could talk you into saying and knowing that you would love for these miracles to happen. Everybody would. And the only reason I argue that way is because I do come across people who are like, I don't want miracles. I don't need them. As if it's showing how strong their faith is. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing because you're neglecting yourself of a significant part of the way God moves within us, and which he will forever. After in eternity, we will still be learning through our experience. Experience is such an powerful thing. I mean, goodness, in the end, honestly, outside of just the tomb being physically empty, we believe that Christ rose from the grave because the experience 12 men had with him and what they did afterwards. So we have no problem with people's experiences. I have no problem listening to this guy's experience. I have no problem whenever there are miracles. I got a book here, okay? 2 books, actually. It's Craig Keener. It's the 2-volume. People show this all the time. Why? Because he did a significant job of going through and cataloging what he believes to be the most credible miracles. It's the credibility of the New Testament accounts here. And then the second one is the credibility of the New Testament accounts, volume 2. Same thing. But one of them does the credibility of the miracles in the New Testament. One of them gives modern day miracles before and after type things. Most of them, I think, are very well done, and many of them, I believe, 100%. And let me tell you something. I get excited whenever I hear the testimony of somebody like the testimony of one person who literally was raised from the dead. You gotta see that what happened there. It's just crazy. But here's the problem: is these are isolated events and they're miracles, and I've said this many times. Miracles are called miracles. If they happened all the time, they'd be called regulars. And that's Chuck Swindoll. Somebody, whenever I said that last time, was like, good old Chuck Swindoll quote. And I was like, that probably was from him. And I'm pretty darn sure it was. Miracles are called miracles, but if they happened all the time, they'd be called regulars. Now, I know that there's some fallacy in that statement, but at the same time, it makes a point. It makes a point that this is something that does burst into our life and cause us to jump up and down in praise. This guy was talking about how these things, God wanted us to see these things, but we are a culture that has a veil up, shrouding us from the world of the supernatural and keeping us from experiencing those things. I agree with the first part. We have a veil up and it shrouds us. I agree in the sense that I claim to believe in miracles. I claim to believe in the spiritual world. I claim to believe in so much mystery. And you've heard me talk about this many, many times. But deep down inside, I have to wrestle with that claim because I'm not sure that I really, really believe it. I've got to work on that. I want to work on the ability to see, at least in my mind's eye, with great faith that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and forces on the other side. I don't know what to do with it. It doesn't tell me. It just says this is who you're battling, but not how to battle them necessarily, except for to put on the full armor of God. That's it. It's not a hard thing to do in this battle, but at the same time, do I really believe all this stuff is going on? Now, whenever you have people who are going around and they say they're casting out demons, I mean, this guy, it was odd. Again, I like the guy in a very real sense, but at the same time, he was basically saying that just about everybody that came to that place, and maybe that's why they came, they had some type of problem, and many, many times he had to cast out the demon, and whenever he would call out the demon, it would speak to him. That's hard for me. It's hard for me not to believe because this guy, why would he lie? I mean, that'd be a big deal to lie like that. I mean, lying is a very significant thing. I think lying, as far as character is concerned, it is the first foundation of your character, of your personality. Therefore, it's the first thing in all relationships. Therefore, it's the first thing in just about everything. If everybody's a liar, we're done. We have nothing. Lying is horrible. And I lie. I do, not a lot, and it's more stretching the truth, but I don't like it, and I try to adjust it, and usually I will feel guilty, and many times I'll come back, and I'll even tweak back what I had said to make myself look better or some situation look like I wanted it to look, and have to tweak that back. If I'm a liar, I couldn't be a teacher. If I'm a liar, I certainly can't be an apologist and defend the faith. I'll make us look bad. We cannot be liars. Lying is so incredibly important to avoid. Now, this guy, is he lying? I don't think so. Here's the benefit of the doubt I give him. Maybe all these things are happening, number one. Maybe he's right and I'm missing out. That's probably the hardest one. It's probably the hardest one for all of us because, yeah, at the same time, we benefit because look at this, our faith is being demonstrated in people and they're rejoicing God. And I have no problem with that. I don't look at this and I'm jealous necessarily. It's just here it is happening over there a whole lot. And I'm like sitting here by myself saying, what did I do wrong? If this is supposed to be happening and I have pursued this, I have looked for it. And this is the way that I think this is. When we're talking about charismatics, all you charismatics out there understand my feelings, my ethos at this point is this. What did I do wrong? Because I have tried, and I want to see this. Now, you have to struggle. You have to wrestle with me and see if I'm truly lying. I'm not lying. I'm not. Trust me. You probably believe me. I would think that you do by now because I talk about this so much and I am very serious. But maybe you think I am closing my eyes, kind of like Elijah's guy. Whenever all the angels were there getting ready to fight, and Elijah said, "Open his eyes so that he can see these things." Maybe my eyes are closed, but at the same time, I'm like, "Why this doesn't make any sense? What am I doing wrong?" And then a lot of people say, well, you got to believe. And as long as you believe, I've tried to muster up the belief many times. And I think a few times I have. Unfortunately, I did. I really did believe that this was going to happen because I worked myself into a situation. This was a long time ago. I don't do this really anymore. But I worked myself into a situation where I would just believe that it was going to happen because hopefully there was power in my belief. And it didn't. And I'm telling you, most people that does not work for unless you're talking yourself into believing something that probably really isn't happening. I mean, that's just not the way it was in the New Testament. God didn't come in and Jesus go to each place and give a lecture on why they are not seeing the miracles. And, they weren't even believers. That Christ was bringing in and opening up the doors to the church, and these people were on the outside. And he comes in and he makes an impact on a culture that was not that was not too different from ours, rationally speaking, that was very surprised whenever things happened. So none of them believed. But once they start seeing it happen, yes, they believed. And let me tell you something. If I was at a place where I knew this was happening and Christ is going around healing everybody, or there's a guy that's healing everybody, I would believe while I'm sitting there. My heart would change and I would rejoice. It would work. It would be for the encouragement of the church. It would bring people from the outside into the church saying, who is this God that can perform miracles this way? I want to know him. That's what would happen. Okay? And with me, that would happen as well. But at the same time, I can't encourage anybody to ever work up belief that they don't know whether or not it's going to happen. You say, well, Michael, that's the point. You've got to know it's going to happen and it will happen. Well, I don't get that from the scriptures. I do not get that from the scriptures. And most importantly, I don't get it from your illustrations. I don't see that happening. Whenever I watch, I don't see things happening the way that any objective observer would. All objective observers in Israel at the time were following Christ because they knew something was happening. They knew even in the Sanhedrin, he was connected to God. They hated him and they crucified him for this. That's how much they were against him, but they were still seeing these miracles and acknowledging them. So here's a guy that's telling me that a Christian, a person who loves the Lord, and somebody who wants to see these things, hey, you're just not believing. You got to believe and you'll see it. I'm like, hey, let me just kick back and watch you for a minute, And I'm watching him and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't see anything happening. I always see all the things that are very deniable. Now, I'm not saying things that haven't happened and things don't happen. There's a couple of testimonies out there where I've heard, look right here, all these testimonies, but a couple of them that I've heard that's even more significant than this that just blew me away. And it did have to do with a appendage of the body growing back that was not there. They were born without it. And I believe the story. I really do, because I believe who it is that's telling me this. I believe him a lot more than I believe this other guy, because I know this guy. I know of him, and it was just a crazy story. Now, I'm not saying miracles don't happen, but if miracles are happening out there randomly, and they're truly miracles, not regulars, I don't really get that upset, because I don't see it as if God wants me to believe in miracles. And if I do believe in miracles or healing, then it will happen. I'm the only one holding back the power of God in this situation. I don't like that. I think that is very hard for me. I cannot talk myself into that. It seems very convenient for another side that I want to be on. My team that I love, it seems very convenient for you. And so therefore I cannot go in that direction. And it doesn't fit with the New Testament model, the culture of the day, what Christ did whenever he came in and made his splash, the apostles, what they did. It does not fit. I'm not denying miracles. I believe in miracles. Okay, so we go back to that charismatic, and how charismatic am I with regard to miracles? I'm not that charismatic with regard to miracles, but I believe in miracles. So using the other definition of charismatic, how high you raise your hands or how much you believe that spiritual things are going on in the background, I'm trying to get up there. I would love to be completely charismatic in the sense of I believe that, so it's no longer help my unbelief type thing. And I see that quite a bit in a lot of people. I look at you out there and people I've talked to, and I think, this person wants to believe it too. We all want to believe it. And then again, you think, if it's happening and we want to believe it, but it's happening at other places, why am I left out? If God wants everybody to go through this stuff, I know he doesn't necessarily want to heal everybody, but it is a hard thing. Once you start healing people in this context, you really got to heal them all, or you're leaving somebody behind that becomes so much more discouraged than they were before. And that's why I think whenever we're in the Bible, in the New Testament with Christ, I see him healing everybody that came to him. Everybody. It was at one town where he couldn't perform any miracles, but it's because the people didn't want them. They weren't salivating at the mouth for his power to come in their area. They did not like him, so they had no problem with it. But anybody who was longing to see the power of God, they got it. And they themselves would be healed. He didn't leave people out, and since he didn't leave people out, then you have a situation where the discouragement that I'm talking about is not going to happen. I mean, he even healed somebody that believed from far away. He even healed some girl whenever she walked by and touched his robe. I mean, that type of stuff. He was healing everybody that wanted to in the New Testament got healed. So here I am, here you are, here some of you are out there, and you want to be healed. You want this loved one to be healed, and you see all these things happening everywhere else, and this guy's telling you it goes on all the time. All you have to do is believe like me and kind of shift your faith in this direction, and then you even try, it doesn't work. I mean, it's just discouraging. It really is. And what do I need from anybody? I don't know what I need. I need to talk to somebody that can convince me that this is right. Somebody that can convince me, and I'll talk to anybody. Okay. Anybody out there, if you want to talk about this, please let me know. Please get with me. I've got a new email for people that are coming in. Let me see if I can get this up here. Let's see here. Captions. Okay. I'm going to put a caption up here with my email on it. Here's you'll remember this. WEIRD theology, weird theology at gmail.com. So that has to do with our podcast. Weird theology. It's not weird theology. It's crypto theology, but it's basically the same thing. Crypto theology is the name of it. I could not get crypto theology. I could not get it for Gmail, so I made Weird Theology. So if you want to talk about it or get with me on Facebook, message me. I've got you can go catch me on Facebook quite a bit. I'm always writing on there. But those are the two ways. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to figure out how it is that I can become like you. I'm not here to criticize, but let me tell you something. I cannot, out of kindness and love for you and belief in you, not push you very hard, because I want to get here, but I cannot allow myself. Listen, folks, and this is going to be crazy for some of you. We're doing that podcast called Crypto Theology, right? You may think here's what you may be thinking. Michael, you're too rational. You went to seminary and lost your ability to have faith. Michael, you don't want to believe enough, or you're not believe. You could say anything and kind of put up that wall between me and what can actually happen. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I want to be convinced of it, and I want to learn how. It's been darn hard to learn how. If I ever did, I'd say, gosh, I feel sorry for other people, because this took me a long time to get here, and I'm not that hard to win over. I'm not that hard to win over. I'm really not that hard to win over. Let me tell you something. I believe, whenever we're doing crypto theology, I believe in Bigfoot. So you want to talk about somebody who's not hard to win over? Okay. I do believe in Bigfoot. Now, I believe in him in a very different way. There's something out there. There's somebody out there. We'll talk about that on crypto theology. We'll go into that. But I only say that to let you know that I am not one of these anti-supernatural people. I believe in these things. I have to approach them on God's ground, and that ground is very, very, very sacred. We have to honor him. We have to honor his word. He is, this is God, folks. This is God, the creator of all things. His name, his reputation is way too important to not be very careful around. I mean, we're told to fear God. That's the beginning of all wisdom. And so in this case, I'm like, man, I'll tell you, I fear getting it wrong. I really do. I fear being motivated because of my desire. I want so bad to believe this that I fear my desire will push me in that direction. That keeps me at bay to some degree. So let's talk about it. If you can talk about it, that would be great. If you will talk about it, that would be great. I would love to talk to you. We'll maybe get you on here. I can get you on here. If you want to show your face, that's great. If you don't, I could probably set it up to where you don't have to show your face. I can't do it to where your mouth sounds different. I don't know whether you'd not want to be. No, I'm acting like this is crypto theology, and we have a testimony coming up because people may not want their voice to be heard. But that's my podcast here. Miracles Unveiled, talking about healings. And at least it gives you something to think about. At least it gives those who are in the same position as me, you're not alone. And then those who believe in these things and practice them, here's what you have to work with people like me. I'm very honest. I will go there. Just help me. I mean, pray for miracles, and literally pray for miracles, because I want them. I really do. But I'm not just gonna blindly accept them. It's gonna be hard to qualify for a miracle. I'm serious. It's not a leg growing. It's not a back that's out. It's not even, I mean, maybe cancer and stuff like that. I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, now he's really bad. But there are things that just happen sometimes. And those types of things are the things that make me believe. But even then, and you're going to hate me for saying this, even when I do believe in miracles, like in this book, even when I say, yep, that happened, I accept it. With the guy that I was talking about where the appendage grew back, yep, I believe that happened. But it doesn't mean I'm charismatic, but it's still a first step. It just means I believe in miracles. Charismatic means you believe that they are normative for the church and you're pursuing them. That would be a next step. And I want to get tall steps. I just can't even get past really the first step, I guess. I don't know. All right, folks, thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And all right, folks, we'll see you next time. God bless you. Please subscribe. Please become a patron. I have to have patrons. I need patrons at patreon.com. I'll put that in the chat or in the text to make sure you see it. But just go to patreon.com, search for C. Michael Patton. Patreon.com/C. Michael Patton. That's where you'll find me anywhere. Facebook, Twitter. I'm always C. Michael Patton. TikTok even. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe and do all those fun things. Make comments. If you're listening to this on, I know you're probably not, because I started saying goodbye and nobody's listening anymore. But if you're on Spotify, if you're on iTunes, please make comments. Put a 5-star rating if it's 5-star. If you don't think it was 5-star, if you think it's 1-star, just don't put any rating. But I have to have those. Whenever we lost our server and this thing restarted, we restarted right in the middle of the time whenever in 2017, 2018, whenever critical race theory was coming up, and we got so many bad comments because people were mad about that. And so it really pushed us down. I think they're probably sorry they made those bad comments now. But anyway, I thought it was very prophetic whenever we were doing that. I mean, it was just kind of crazy how they were teaching me about this stuff, and it actually did happen that way. But anyway, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Theology